Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Carrie and today I am doing another book review. Look at me, 2 months into the year by the time this is posted, and 2 book reviews. Wait until December, this will all fall apart. But anyway, I am doing a review on, it helps if I hold it up right, upside down, oh my goodness, right side up. Sex in the Sea by Dr. Mara J. Hart. This is a nonfiction book about, well, you know, creatures just getting it on in the sea. This is fantastic. I gave this book 5 stars, hands down, and it is so great. So it starts with dating games, and then sealing the deal, and then post-climax. Those are the section headings, and then there's chapters within each of those. At the beginning of each chapter, let me go find the first one, you have pictures, such as this one, which says, "I can't get enough of your love, baby." And then it has trivia. For the first one of them says, "Male blue whales are getting their berry white on." White, not Manilow. I was telling my coworkers about it earlier, and I said Manilow. It was a berry somebody. And then it also has a soundtrack for each chapter. So for the first chapter, there's "Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe" by Barry White, and then "Good Vibrations" by the Beach Boys, are just 2 of them. It also has just random other little cartoons, and then in the middle of it, give or take, there are some pictures of various different aquatic species that she mentions in the book. I didn't quite know what to expect of this one because I picked it up on a whim at my library, a month and a half ago, and I just picked it up because I was roaming through the science section for something new and found it. Turns out that was one of the best decisions I've made in a long time. It is just, I don't quite know how to describe it, really, besides hilarious. It is all accurate, or at least I'm assuming it's accurate, because she is a research co-director for the nonprofit Future of Fish. She's a coral reef ecologist by training, a former research fellow with the Blue Ocean Institute, and has written for several scientific magazines. I'm assuming she knows what she's talking about. She knows more than I do anyway. But it goes through various different sexual shenanigans, we'll say, of many different species, including blue whales, mobula, which are rays, groupers, it's fine guys, the book is fine, groupers, snails, abalone, oysters, all sorts of fish, from mobile to immobile to sharks. Sharks are in there, dolphins are in there. She talks about orgies and penis length and vagina complexity, everything, and it's a very strange thing to read because you're reading about the genitalia of other animals. Fish, whales, sharks. I'm still not, apparently sharks are fish, so I learned that. And just that kind of stuff. She brings up BDSM in this because there's a fish that drags itself and then buries itself in the sand outside of the water, and then the males lie around her, and that's how the eggs are fertilized, and then she crawls back in, so, you know, she's kind of suffocating while she's doing it. And just various stuff like that. There are also, I forgot to mention, at the beginning of most chapters, there are little, like, fictional romance book segments that relate to each chapter. So for the second one, which is Luring a Lover, The Art of Salty Seduction, it starts out with a paragraph that says, "She had been eyeing him for days now. Walking by his swanky house on the way to and from work, he was big, strong, and known for throwing his weight around in the neighborhood. She liked his tough guy nature, and yesterday, she really fell hard." And then it goes on for another 2 paragraphs before explaining how that fictionalized, anthropomorphized account relates to the fish that she's talking about. It's also very tongue-in-cheek, not in the way that she doesn't mean what she says, but in the way that it's just so sarcastic and almost facetious that it's hilarious. She talks about Nemo. She definitely has a whole section in here on clownfish and on how the whole Nemo's dad running away after him really would not have happened, because we got some sex switching fish. She's got a whole poem about sex switching. It's just, again, it's very sarcastic and tongue-in-cheek, and it's well written. There is science in here, but it's incredibly easily graspable science. So it's not throwing complex terminology at you. She does have a couple of chemicals like tributylin or TBT, which used to be put on the underside of boats, and I think still is to some extent, or ships, and how that affected different sea creatures and their mating rituals. So she talks about that in each chapter as well, how climate change or pollution or whatever else has affected their mating rituals and how we can maybe fix it. I will say she's a little bit brief in each of the chapters, which by the time I got to the end of the book, without knowing what I was getting into, I was a little bit disappointed in. But then I got to the last chapter that is not the conclusion, where she has, yes, this is how this all affects the ocean at large, because she mentions it specifically pursuant to each species. But then at the end of it, in the not quite conclusion chapter, she talks about how it affects the ocean at large and what that means for humans and how we can fix it. So she talks about ecotourism and coral farming and all that kind of stuff. She mentions the Great Barrier Reef and how we've lost a lot of it, and if we don't do something, we're going to lose all of it. She talks about how certain species are more resilient. She talks about sustainable fish farming, or fishing, I guess both. All that kind of stuff. She talks about IVF as well, something where you implant the sperm and the egg from a human into the woman. I think you just implant it straight into the woman as opposed to like putting it in a petri dish and then, but you might put it in a petri, I'm not really sure, I don't know how that works. But IVF, and how we have sea urchins to thank for that apparently. And she talks about, there's a nice picture of some whale vaginas. There's this one species, I think it's an oyster or something like that, that has this blue horseshoe crabs. That's not an oyster. Horseshoe crabs. And how those creatures have blood that can detect incredibly limited amounts of bacteria. And so we've vampirized them and drained them of blood a lot of times, a third of it, and how that affects their mating cycles. This book is just chock full of fascinating facts and their application to the human world, and then the human world's impact on those species and what we can do to sustain it, and how the ocean is trying to fix it itself. Overall, I think this is a well done book. Like I said before, it's hilarious, it's easy to read, it is packed with information, and while it doesn't delve into any one species, I think it does a good job of addressing that, in that she says multiple times that there are so many different species we don't even know half of them. And a lot of them are endangered species that are mentioned in this book. She doesn't explicitly say why, that I remember. I'm choosing to believe it is because she's trying to draw more attention to the endangered species so that we recognize that, shark fin soup is not a great idea. Also, why would you want to eat the fins of anything? That's just my opinion. I don't like sushi though either. I don't do fish other than cooked salmon. There's just something, nope. Anyway, aside from my eating habits, this provided a very in-depth, superficial explanation of various different species in a fun and accessible way. I realized that not all of that made sense, specifically the first two adjectives I used in that sentence, but that's kind of how it feels. She goes in depth into specific species' sex lives, but because there are so many different species and so many different effects and reasons and what have you that we don't know about the ocean, it can't be in depth such as something on the monarch butterfly might be. Mind you, I'm just making that up. I'm not sure how in-depth scientists have gone on the monarch butterfly. Anyway, before this video ends up as long as some of my latest videos, because believe me, I'm aware that my December wrap-up and haul were insanely long, I'm gonna call this one quits, but if you enjoy science or are even remotely curious about the water, the ocean, I highly recommend this book because it is fantastic and it is 234 pages. So it shouldn't take that long, but it is totally worth however much time you want to take and read it. That is all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!